अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीवन। उम्मीद करता हूँ आप सब खैरियत से होंगे। आज के इस लेक्चर में आप जानने वाले हैं अप्रोचेज ऑफ आयो साइकोलॉजी। अप्रोचेज जानते हैं ये क्या होती हैं। आयो साइकोलॉजी पर्सपेक्टिव इज टू एग्जामिन इंडिविजुअल बिहेवियर्स एंड एटीट्यूड within an organizational context. Davis and Powell in 1992 noted that the study of organizations began in 1950. One of the theme of IO psychology today is the need to be responsive and adaptable to changing conditions at both the individual level and job level within organization. Organization is a coordinated group of people who perform tasks to produce goods and services referred to as a company. There are different school of thought or theories about organizations. There are five major approaches we are going to study. The number one, classical theory. It was developed in the early 20th century that describe the forms and structure of an organization. Any of the organization have four components. Classical theory provides the structural anatomy of organization comprehensively. Though none of the classical theories were psychologists, and the current organizational researcher regard classical theory uh, as an antique, yet its below mentioned four principles are deeply ingrained in the real life structure of organization. Here are four components of any organization. A system of number one, a system of differentiated activities and functions performed in organization and the relationship among these activities linked together. Second, people perform tasks and are authority. Cooperation. Number three, cooperation toward a goal. Cooperation among the people performing various activities is the most important factor in reaching a unity of purpose or common goal. Number four, authority. Authority is maintained by superior subordinate relations to affirm cooperation among people working to achieve the common goal. Here are major structural principles who work on previous components. Number one structure is functional principle, refers to the concept that organizations should be divided into units that perform similar functions. Number second, scholar principle refers to the concept that organizations are structured by a chain of command growing with increasing levels of authority. Each level has its own degree of authority. Each subordinate is acceptable to only one supervisor. Number three, staff principle refers to the concept of differentiating organizational work into line and staff functions that directly meet to the goals of an organization. Number four, span of control principle refers to the concept of the number of subordinate to be supervised by a manager. A small span control two subordinate or larger extra. Uh, the new classical theory is the second uh, it's a part of critics of classical theory. Developed a new classical theory. New classical theory was developed in 1950 as a desire to add richness and realism to classical theory of organization. It modernized and updates the classical theory. The new classicists examined the four major principles of the classical theory. For the functional principle, they found that division of labor causing functional interdependence among work activities, develop dissatisfaction in workers, and an alignment from their work due to repetitive activity. Thus, their efficiency and productivity decreases. The new classicists argued for a less rigid division of labor and for more humanistic work for the workers to derive a sense of value and meaning from their jobs. Number second, for the scholar principle of the superior subordinate chain of relationship, they criticize on the grounds that interpersonal activities influence the individuals more than the formal structure of the organization. Number three, for the staff principle, the new classical illustrated that many staff functions are critical to the success of the organization, as company's purpose is to produce, but if its scale is not up to mark of productivity, its production is useless. Numbers four, for a satisfactory span of control, they preferred psychological factor of leadership style and capacity in manager to a number of subordinates. The new classes based their results on behavioral researches that showed the importance of individual differences to fit in organization. By 1960, the organization were more complex, even though the new classes presented them. So a new school of thought emerged with a new theory called system theory. So system theory had its origins in the biological sciences and was modified to meet the needs of organizational theory. System theory developed in 1970 that described organizations in terms of interdependent components relationship with its environment. A complex organization is a social system and various factors functioning it are not isolated but are linked together throughout the organization. All of the parts are interdependent is the key of system approach. Five parts of the system theory. Number one, individuals with their responsibility, abilities, and attitudes influence the organizations with the participants participation in the system. Number second, formal organization. It is a interrelated pattern of jobs which provide the structure of the system. Small groups. Individuals do not work isolately. They work in small groups to facilitate their adaptability within the system. Status and role differences among job define the behavior of individuals within the system. Physical setting is in an environment and technology characterize an organization. All these parts of the systems have an interlinkage for communications and decision making through a series of network, often deviating from the formal lines of authority. Communication by means of its responsiveness to its environment makes the system perspective of organization. System theory instructs to meet the system's larger goals of stability, growth, and adaptability. System theory departs from the classical and neoclassical school of thought. System theory views organizations as a form of living organisms to reach stability, to growth, and adapt. However, all these school of thought, neoclassical and system, have contributed a lot in the evaluation in the evolution of organizational theory to form. I'm sorry, there was a hawker in my street. Anyhow, however, all these school of thought, school of classical, neoclassical, and system have contributed a lot in the evolution of organizational theory to form a work team from the small groups and system theory. Here is organizational structure 1983 presented by Mintzberg. Five coordinated mechanisms as a process for the organizational to function. Mutual adjustment. Number one, mutual adjustment is the process by which the employees coordinate their efforts to produce an outcome. Direct supervision is a process of coordination by which a person takes the responsibility of others' work, issuing them instructions and monitoring their actions. Standardization of work processes is a mechanism that achieves coordination to standardized or specify the product of work to be performed. Standardized of skills and knowledge can be obtained by specifying in advance the knowledge, skills, and training required to perform work. Five parts of the organizational structure. Previously, here are organizational structure. Here are the major five parts of organizational structure. Operating core. So number one, operating core. The employees responsible for conducting the basic work duties are operating core, serving the organization's defined purpose. Number second, strategic apex in Mintzberg was is the brain of the organization, responsible for the overall success of an organization. It is associated with the executive leadership of the organization having responsibility and authority to meet the larger goals of the organization. Middle line. The employees in middle line have day-to-day authority to ensure the overall goals set by the strategic apex are being carried out by the operating core. Technostructure has those employees with technical experts facilitating the overall operation of the organization. Support staff are the helpers of the organization in mail switch, board security, and janitorial services. Support staff and a technical structure collectively work for the organization, relying on different coordinated mechanisms. System approach. Last approach, systematic approach. A system is an entity with a purpose that has interdependent parts. The systems approach suggested viewing the organization as a system. Systematic management emphasized internal operations because managers were concerned primarily with the meeting to explore growth in demand brought about by the industry revolution. In addition, managers were free to focus on internal issues of efficiency and parts because of the government did not concentrate business practices significantly. Finally, labor was poorly organized. As a result, many managers were oriented more toward things than toward people. The influence of the systematic management approach is clear in the following description of one organization attempt to control its workers. All systems have four basic characteristics or traits. They operate, number one, they operate within an environment. Number second, they are composed of building blocks called elements. Components are subsystems. Number three, they have a central purpose against which the organization effort and subsystems can be evaluated. And the number four, essential systems thinking places focus on the interrelations among the subsystems and its environment. So it was the lecture related to approaches of IO psychology. Hope it will be huge helpful for you people. Finally, thanks.